Hey, welcome into the Stink Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my co-host Mike Evans. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. Thank you for subscribing. Shoot us a question. I'm trying to answer all those questions on the podcast. And anyhow, free agency still rolling along right now. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, and we've got some breaking news as we're recording this right away. We've got stuff to talk about. Aaron Donald announcing his retirement, age 32, three-time Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champion. He certainly doesn't need to play more, but still, does this retirement surprise you at all?
It does surprise me because he signed a new deal. Right? He was talking about it, a year ago or whatever. Came back, played one more season with the Rams. They went to the playoffs. They did go to the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah,
the Rams
lost to the Lions.
Went to the right. They lost to the Lions. So I guess I'm not super. I thought he'd finish out the contract, so I'm a little bit surprised. It always surprises me to a degree when a guy is still considered one of, if not the best at his position. By the way, Aaron Donald, maybe the most dominant player I have watched over this last generation. The best football player, not best defensive line, the best football player in the National Football League.
Can I just interject, because you have said this repeatedly, so I want to give you your props on this one, because whenever I try to bust your chops about saying, the best player in the league is a quarterback, you're like,
Right.
The best player in football, and you've been steadfast in saying this for several years now, the best football player is Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald.
Best player in football.
Bar none. The guy is just, every time you break the huddle, back in my time, we used to call them war daddies. And when you had a war daddy on the opposite team, every time you broke the huddle, the first thing you do is say, where's 99? Yep. Where's he lined up? And how are we going to account for 99 on this particular play? You remember, I played in a day where I was lined up against Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White and guys of that magnitude. And Aaron Donald was such a dominant presence. And I tell you one thing that I think most people don't really understand about defensive line. So as an offensive lineman, you're trying to create leverage, and you're trying to win the leverage game. And I always said, when everybody's approximately the same height, right? We're all 6'3", 6'4", whatever it is. And when you come off and hit each other, you're going to hit helmet to helmet, essentially, right? It's the person that can take that energy from hitting helmet to helmet and create this upward motion, right? And once you get under a guy, that's how you create leverage. So, I always get, you got to stay low. Ain't no shit, Sherlock, right? Like, I'm getting impaled. I get that I have to stay low. So my big thing is you create leverage through technique. And so you don't strike out on a guy, you strike up on a guy. And when you strike up on a guy, you get his momentum going through the top of the stadium. That's when you get movement. That's how you create. So that's why that is such a freaking skill. Coming off the ball and taking people off the ball, no greater skill in the National Football League than taking a man from point A to point B who's the same size and same strength as you and moving him off the ball. And so leverage is created through technique. One of the things, an advantage for Aaron Donald, by the way, is his stature. He's listed at whatever he's listed at, 6'1", 6. Man, the dude is. I wouldn't be shocked if he was 5'11", 6 foot even, maybe. But one of the things that happens to you with those guys is, as an offensive lineman, you tend to strike out, not up, because of their stature and the way they come off the ball. So when you strike out, the problem is you're not developing anymore. You're not developing that upward tilt, that you're not developing that momentum. You're not developing that just that leverage aspect. So you start to reach out. When you reach out, you get over your toes. When you get over your toes, you lose leverage and balance. You've got to play with your hips underneath you. And so not only was he ridiculous strong, dude was like a tuna. Just one solid. You ever been tuna fishing?
No.
You've never been tuna fishing?
I've never been tuna fishing.
Oh, my God. You get like a 25-pound tuna, 30-pound tuna?
I love tuna.
Oh, the tuna's delicious.
Tuna's delicious, but I never caught a tuna.
Oh, those little sons of bitches, they'll come, you get them up to the top of the water, they'll just look at you, eyeball you, like up yours, and right down the bottom. Like, that's what they do. They're ridiculous. And then you're like, yeah. I went tuna fishing. I had herniated disc in my back, and dude, I was dying. Just like, and you just like, you come off the boat, you just were like, which way? You're like Chris Farley. Yeah, which way's the weight room? Fat guy in a little coat.
Because it takes 30 minutes to reel one of these suckers in, right?
They'll do 2 or 3 times. They'll get it like, boom, right back down to the bottom. It killed me. Anyhow, the dude's a solid muscle. He's a solid muscle. And like I said, because he's shorter, it changes your strike angles. And not only is he a solid muscle, but man, the dude is quick as lightning. The one time I had several different meetings, but I did a production meeting with Aaron one time, and so I was like, okay, third down and 12 games on the line. What's your go-to move? Now he's a fairly stoic dude, right? And he looks at me like this and goes, "No." I go, no, I'm like, I thought he didn't understand the question, right? So I was like, no, it's third down and 12, and you gotta have a one pass rush, and you get a one-on-one situation. You gotta have one pass rush to win the game. What's your go-to move? Silence. He just looks at me just like I'm looking at you and goes, no, I'm gonna tell you my go-to move. And dead serious. So we've got
Did you get a little pea shiver?
Yeah, like tinkled in my pants a little bit.
Exactly.
Like a little wet spot. Had to get up with my hand over my pants and say, hey, good to meet you. You know? I mean, anyhow. So now we've got this thing that every time I see him, which is, I did week 18, and he's not going to play, but he's out there warming up like he's going to play. I'm like, always come by and go, third down 12. He's like, nope. I'm not gonna, it's like a joke now. Yeah. This is a running joke between us. Let me just say this to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, it was an absolute pleasure to get to watch you play. Thank you so much, because you enriched all of us who are football fans. You enriched our lives with the way you play the game, your dedication, your work, and just your dispensation of justice was one of the all-time greats, and I played against some of the all-time greats, and I put you in that category with Lawrence Taylor, with Reggie White, with Jerome Brown, with Warren Sapp, with Cortez Kennedy, with some of the all-time great players. You are right there at the top of the list. So all the best to you, and congratulations.
Well said. Another bit of breaking news today, as we're getting ready to talk about this, was the announcement that the Vikings have made a trade with Houston, giving up basically a second-round pick this year and one next year to move up to get Houston's 23rd pick in the first round. It seems pretty apparent that they're looking to load up to try to move up from number 11 to get a quarterback. Yeah. They signed Sam Darnold earlier in the week, and you're a big Sam Darnold fan. What was your reaction when you heard about this move?
Right. Well,
and do you have a sense of who Kevin O'Connell might be looking to target?
The first thing when they signed Sam Darnold, that was something that I really liked that move. And there was speculation here in Denver, and the Denver Broncos also inquired about Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold chose Sin City. That was his first move. Sin City. I want to go to Sin City.
No, that's Vegas. Is Sin City, not Minnesota.
No, Minnesota. Because you got Hawkinson, you got Jefferson, you got Addison. That is Sin City. Like, that makes sense to me, right?
People, my bad. I should know better by now to know Mark's humor, but
right. No,
he chose my bad.
He chose Sin City. Like, would you rather come to Denver where we have I don't know, or would you rather go to Minnesota? Right, that makes perfect sense. But this certainly looks to me to be a play where you can package the 11th overall pick and the 23rd pick you just got, and maybe move up. And if you're going to move up, to me, you're probably going to have to move up where Arizona sits right now, unless Arizona is not sold on Kyler Murray, which I don't know how you could be if you were Arizona. But if you decide that Kyler Murray is my guy, we paid him, we're going to see if it works out under Jonathan Gannon, first-year head coach Jonathan Gannon, well, then that would be the one, because I think the Giants, I mean, I feel like the Giants are going to, are moving off of Daniel Jones. They signed Drew Lock, but I feel like the Giants at 6 are going to make a pick there. So doesn't it feel like Minnesota is compiling capital to move up to that 4th position overall so they can take what, J.J. McCarthy?
J.J. McCarthy, Drake May. I would think it'd be one of those two, because it looks like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are trending as the top 2 quarterbacks to go.
I believe they are. I believe those guys will be the top 2.
And then there seems to be, because the one thing that you just as you just follow this and pay attention to it, it seems like J.J. McCarthy's stock is going up.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix is just kind of staying even, which is probably no news is good news for him.
Mm-hmm.
But Drake May, it sounds like his stock might be falling a little bit. So I wonder if J.J. McCarthy might be the guy that could be the 3rd quarterback off the board.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. He's, like I said, he's one of one, and I've talked to you about this, one of one, we've talked about it on this podcast, that really operates at the line of scrimmage, that feels like under Jim Harbaugh called plays at called plays in a huddle, managed formationally and personnel groupings where they're shifting, they're motioning and they're shifting and they're doing that, changing strengths and everything else, and having to read that as a quarterback. So he feels like the one guy that had pre-snap responsibilities as a quarterback, as opposed to just everybody looking at a card, that had, barn rooster chicken on it, and then, everybody doing whatever barn rooster chicken means, which I don't know what barn rooster chicken means. I have no clue. But that would be my kind of assessment with that. So he feels like, and I know this about Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell's a big pre-snap, let's get into a premium play, which we could have a discussion on that trend in the National Football League, where everybody has 2 plays that are called, and they want to get into premium play depending upon the front that you're running and the coverage that you're running, which I personally feel is total bullshit. But that's what everybody does now, because I think sometimes when you're waiting for the perfect play and everybody's sitting on their haunches and then we're getting this look, oftentimes it takes you away from being aggressive and essentially dictating to a defense, as opposed to you're letting the defense dictate to you. So there's a place for the check with me or the can it principles, but when you're trying to always be in the perfect play, like sometimes you just need to line up and not snot clobber somebody, right? Just be Buster McThunderstruck and hit him in the head and just go. And so there's part of that. But Kevin is a big, I want to be in that perfect play. So to me, J.J. McCarthy makes sense, because I think he's probably the only guy that actually called, plays in a huddle and actually operated at the line of scrimmage, because the rest of college football doesn't do a lot of that.
While we're talking about quarterbacks, I'm curious to get your take on Kirk Cousins to Atlanta, because throughout the season, when we've been doing this podcast, you've talked about Atlanta as being a team that has a lot of really nice pieces, might just be a quarterback away from being able to really compete, not only in their division, but in the NFC. Is Cousins that much of a game changer? Does Cousins get them to where you think they can go?
Well, I think Cousins automatically makes them the favorite in the NFC South and gets them into the playoffs. So then, his record is not stellar. He's only had 4 appearances in the playoffs. I believe he's 1-3 in his time in the playoffs. So it's not a stellar record, but I definitely think it puts them at the front runner of the NFC South. So yeah, I mean, and he is a difference maker. That guy is big time, and I think they've got, and we've talked about their roster. I think their roster is outstanding. I think it makes them the front runner of the NFC South.
Can I ask you what you did to Roddy White? So Roddy White, if you're not familiar, terrific wide receiver in the NFL.
Incredible.
For 11 years with Atlanta. Really good career.
Yeah.
I think he had ballpark, 850 catches, 11,000 yards, 62 touchdowns. But he took to Twitter, X, and went on a rant about Russell Wilson and how Russell Wilson was done wrong by Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Went after Payton and went after you in the process.
Yeah.
What's the deal? What's the beef, man?
I don't know. I mean, obviously he's a Russell Wilson. He's a Rusty. So,
you use it as such a derogatory term.
No, it's just like, I'm a crusty.
What, a crusty?
A crusty. I don't believe in Russ. He's a Rusty.
Okay.
He does believe in Russ.
Okay.
And I keep going back to two teams in his quarterbacking prime chose to move off of him in a quarterback-deprived, in a quarterback-driven league to the tune of $111 million in dead cap space. So, do with that what you will. Yeah, I mean, he had an unbelievable start to his career. The last 3 years have not looked good. Whatever. And yeah, I thought when Denver signed him, I was on board. But the only thing that pissed me off, we can have a difference of opinion. I'm fine with having a difference of opinion, having a discussion. But the thing that pissed me off is he said on Twitter that I lied, that I'm lying to cover for Sean. And that pisses me off because that brings my integrity and work ethic into question. And I don't know about Roddy White, but I've talked at length to Pete Carroll. I've talked at length to Brian Schottenheimer. I've talked at length to Darrell Bevel. I've talked at length to Shane Waldron. Do you know who I've never talked to about Russell Wilson? Not one time. That I've never had one Denver Broncos related discussion with since he got here? Sean Payton. You accuse me of holding Sean Payton's water. I have not asked him one question on Russell Wilson. I have not asked him one question on the Broncos, about the Broncos. We have not spoken on the phone. We have texted back and forth, but it's more about our personal relationship and families and things of that nature. Not one time. And I respect Sean for this. I understand that when Sean took this job in Denver, that our relationship changed because I do a daily radio show in Denver. And I respect him enough to know that I'm not going to put him in a bad position asking him questions and to gossip about his football team. He's got a job to do. I have a job to do. My job is to talk on the radio and present the truth based upon what the film tells me. Oh, by the way, I've also talked to Hackett and some of the Denver Bronco coaches from the previous regime. But I haven't ever had a conversation with Sean. So to call me a liar and to say that I'm carrying the water for Sean is total bullshit, and it pisses me off. And then in another article, he said, well, I know offensive line. I don't know the skill position. I don't know. I sit in Mike Shanahan's office and discuss football concepts and what the quarterback is supposed to be doing and what the receivers are supposed to be doing. I sit there for hours. I get mentored. I'm serious about my profession. I work hard in my profession. You may think you know more about football than me, and maybe you do, but I doubt you work at it harder than I do. And I don't know about you, but you played in Atlanta, so I know championship football. You know regular season football. So you can kiss my ass if you think that I'm not doing my work, and don't call me a liar. You can have a difference of opinion. I don't give a shit. But to call me a liar is those are fighting words, and I don't appreciate that.
Well, there is the perception that you're either, if you're either with Russ, and if you're with Russ, you're anti-Sean Payton, or vice versa. Which I don't know why the two have to be pitted against each other. I think Sean did a lot of good for Russ last year, helped kind of revitalize his career a little bit to the point where he was pretty attractive out there, hooked up with Pittsburgh, talked to a couple other teams. And, Russ got paid by the Broncos, and Sean Payton got hired to do a job, and he gave it a good shot with Russ for 1 year, and he decided that's not the guy I want to work with going forward. So why do we have to
pit
one against the other?
Listen, I'm not. I even did a video when Russ signed here. I was excited.
Sure.
I was excited about Russ signing here. And one of the things, because most of the times you see the highlights late on SportsCenter or whatever, and you see Russ, leading the team down for a game-winning touchdown and that kind of thing. And that was great. And the thing I took umbrage with last year was all the people saying, or 2 years ago when he came here, all the people saying, well, he's washed. He's not athletic anymore. And I was like, baloney. He's plenty athletic. I'm like, his athleticism is not the issue. And it's not. Athletically, he can still throw the ball. He can still scramble around. He can do that. Now, has the game changed to a degree? It's funny to me because I get this, the game has passed you by and the game's passed this guy. The game has passed Sean Payton by. But those same people that say the game has passed Sean Payton by are the same people that are saying, well, Russell won a Super Bowl in 2013. You think the game's different than it was in 2013? Just think of the edge position from then to now. Go look at how the edge defenders performed in their 40 and athleticism tests versus 10, 12 years ago. Like, dude, every guy that plays edge now is 6'4", 228 or 232 or whatever it is, and runs a 4.38 40. Do you think it's changed? So, what you were doing 12 years ago and what you're asking him to do now, do you think that's changed? The lack of congruent argument is what bothers me. But I was all for Russ when he signed here. Mm-hmm. But watching him every week, every single week, and watching the things that derail you as a football team, watching the sacks, watching not understanding a three-step protection and bailing out the back of it, those are the things that irritate me.
Well, I think the perception for a lot of folks when it comes to Russ versus Sean is that, and you hear this word a lot, Sean Payton sabotaged Russell Wilson's career or didn't coach to Russ's strengths. And that wasn't fair to Russ.
Well, but again, that is preposterous because we've seen, I get that all the time too. Well, he's not doing the things he did with Drew Brees. Well, why do you think that is? Because he can't do the things that Drew Brees did. They're not letting him throw the ball in the middle of the field. He doesn't throw the ball. This is not just me and what my eyes tell me on film. These are the people that I have talked to. And by the way, nobody I talked to over the years has ever just bashed Russell Wilson. Nobody has. It's just, here are the facts, the way we see the facts. You can have a difference of opinion. That's fine. We can have discourse, and it's how we educate one another. But to just, I have my opinion. Maybe it's wrong. I doubt it, but maybe it is.
Well, you lately have been going back and forth with some folks. We mentioned Roddy White and Jerry Jeudy.
Harry Hootie. Yep.
This isn't going to
Jimmy
end well.
Jeudy.
This isn't going to end well.
All right.
So he's in Cleveland now. He's saying all the right stuff. Looking forward to a fresh start. Nice to be someplace where he's wanted.
Yeah.
Things that.
Because the Denver Broncos didn't want you when they drafted you 15th overall, the highest they have ever taken an NFL wide receiver in the draft, but they didn't want you. But now it's good. The latest one I heard his press conference yesterday, and it just makes me shake my head. He said it's nice to be in a place with a quarterback that that's accurate, that puts the ball with great ball placement. Instead of that shitty place I was at where the quarterbacks couldn't do that. I mean that's the
implication,
right? I'm like, put the ball placement. Yeah, well, because the quarterback's here in Denver, we're putting it on your hands, and that's the worst place for you because you're gonna bat it down, you're gonna drop it. Your hands are made of feet. Give me a break. Stop it. I sincerely, this is my hope for him. I hope that you take responsibility for being in Cleveland. I hope that you look at yourself critically and say, man, I was a bust in Denver. I did not perform up to the standard of being the 15th overall pick, CeeDee Lamb was taken after me. Justin Jefferson was taken after me. T. Higgins was taken after me. Pittman was taken after me. They're all better than you. Ayuk was taken after you. And, you know, the interesting thing for me, because we've had our battles, and, you know, he's reached out to me over social media and direct messaging and all these things. And I'll tell him the same thing, or I'll tell you the same thing I told him. You know, I'm not, without getting into all the nitty-gritty of it, like, you are an exceptionally talented player that is, like, from an athletic standpoint, you're exceptionally talented. You're not a good football player.
What's the difference? Why?
Well, I mean, obviously you can run, you can jump, and you've got quickness, and you got all those things. Like, it's more than that to be a good football player. Talent is wasted on talented people. Hey, listen, football is easy for football players. It's hard for athletes. And until you understand the sacrifice that is required for your team to be good, because, you know, the crazy thing about that is when you're willing to put others ahead of yourself, that's when you're about to have success. When you play with a selflessness that puts others ahead of yourself, that's when you can have great success. And so for me, that means the receiver has to block people, has to be involved in the running game. It means that you got to win your one-on-ones. You got to be on time. It means that when you're running a secondary route, you've got to run at the proper depth with the proper attitude to draw coverage away from where you want to throw the ball. And when you don't do that, or when you half-ass that stuff, and you throw your arms up in the air because you didn't get the ball and you were late coming out of your break, like, that's on you. And my hope for him is for him to recognize that the reason he's in Cleveland right now is because he was a bust in Denver, because he didn't do the little things well. That's my hope. And then, you know what? Hopefully he goes off and he can have, you know, he can, you know, throw it in my face and say, look how good I am now. And I'll be happy for I sincerely, I'll be kind of happy. I'll be a little bit happy. Well, I'll be. No, I want all young players. I want all young players to play well.
Figure it out. Yeah.
I want them all to play well. Mm-hmm. But there's a part of me that's old school in that, man, I always want to be the greatest teammate I can be, and I always want to be selfless. And I always go back to, I'm telling you, I always go back to the scripture that has influenced my life more than anything else, Paul writing to the church of Philippi. That is my go-to, my life purpose statement is Paul in chapter 2, verse 2. And you look at that scripture. First, he's writing from prison to the church to encourage the church. And he says this, he says, "Make my joy complete by being of the same mind, in the same love, united in spirit. Do nothing of selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, let us regard one another as more important than self." And so you talk about a mission statement, man. That's my life mission statement. And so will I give you grief? Will I call you out? Yeah, I do, because you have a responsibility to your teammates to sacrifice and put them first. You know, it comes back to championship football. It's not about talent. It's about unselfishness. It's about selflessness. That's what makes championship football run. And those are the things I want young guys to learn in this league.
You ready for some questions?
Yeah,
these are
absolutely.
from some of the viewers. So here we go. We'll start with J. Patrick Roush. Mark, your thoughts on the Charger moves? They restructured Bosa, cut Mike Williams, traded Keenan Allen to Chicago for a 4th-round pick.
I think there's a couple things. I'm going to give you credit, which I hate to do.
Oh, please.
But you always say that when you have an elite level quarterback, they make the receivers. Receivers are the most, hey, man, in a completely dependent league, receivers are the most dependent position of all. 10 of the guys have to do their job for you to sniff the ball. And you've got an elite level quarterback, so he can take a receiving core that maybe is not great, i.e. Patrick Mahomes, and win championships with that receiving core. And so for the Chargers, what you're saying is we've got a great quarterback. Now in the draft, let's go get Marvin Harrison Jr. or let's go get the what's the tight end guy's name?
Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers. That's a great name, by the way. Brock Bowers.
That's a tight end's name.
Yeah, that is a tight end's name.
What about the guy from Washington? Did you?
Adunze? What is it?
Adunze.
Adunze. I was all over that.
Hey, close.
Adunze.
Close enough. Like hand grades and horseshoes.
That's
You're
right. Potato,
close
potato, Adunze.
Close enough.
Let's call the whole thing. But what they're saying, we've got an elite level quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to spend $25 million on a receiver.
Yep.
He's going to make them. And let's go get these young guys and rebolster that. Although I will say that Keenan Allen is kind of my modern day Hines Ward.
Yep. Like
there's only a few times, there's a few receivers that I think about that set the tone as an offense. Hines Ward was one of them. Steve Smith Sr., another one of them. Keenan Allen Keenan Allen's might be the toughest player on their team. Like that dude will get in your face. I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. I think he's a great player. He's just one of those guys that probably doesn't outrun anybody, but is always open and sets a tone on that offense.
This one from Swami Love, I think, or
Swami
Love, maybe Swami Love.
Yeah,
maybe it's
Love?
Swami Love.
Swami Love.
Anyway, how long will the Broncos rebuild take? Because it seems like they signaled by taking the majority or the larger part of the Russell Wilson $85 million cap hit, some $52 million of it this year, that it's like, okay, we're going to be prepared to take our lumps this year, but be in a position next year to really go out and rebuild this football team. So maybe a rebuild project coming to Denver. How long does it take?
That's a great question. Obviously, if you find the quarterback that Sean Payton loves and you go after that guy in the draft and you solidify that, and by the way, you're not paying that guy for the next 5 years, essentially, probably next 3.5 years if he does what you hope he does. It'll take 2 or 3 years. If you don't find that guy and you keep kicking the can down the road trying to find that guy, it could take a lot longer. But I love the process of saying we're rebuilding, we're getting rid of guys, we're moving on, we're going to get young, we're going to do it through the draft. And next year, remember, that even with the Russell Wilson dead cap money of 30-some odd million next year, they're going to have 120-ish million on the cap to address, the needs of their football team. And I hope going forward, addressing that is taking care of the guys that you home grow out of the draft that really become great football players.
Final one from Kelly. Will Russell Wilson be better in a Steelers offense?
I do believe he will. I think they've got a better defense. So I think that defense will keep them in, and Mike Tomlin's a defensive kind of guy. And then I've always liked Arthur Smith, his ability to personnel you to death and to run the snot out of the football and set up your play action and some of your easy one read, like fake handoff, one read, RPO stuff, where you're really only eyeballing one target. Because I will say this about Russell Wilson, that dude can flat throw the football. Yep. If he knows where he's going with it and he doesn't get clouded and he's got vision, man, he can flat let it eat. Yep. He's always had that deep ball off that play pass stuff. So, if they run the snot out of the ball and they set that up for him, then I think they've got an opportunity. Now, I don't know where they are offensive line wise. They've been trying to figure that out for a couple of years, but I think he'll be better in a Steeler uniform.
So run the football, be supported by really good defense, be able to take those shots downfield. Where have we seen that formula for Russ before?
Yeah, well, they tried it here last year, but they just weren't
But it feels like Seattle.
Oh yeah.
That's the Seattle model.
They tried it here last year, that model. Now, and plus, they got George Pickens. They got some guys that are big-time playmakers. Like, they could separate and do all those things. They didn't have that here. The biggest issue you get into, and the reason you have to have that great defense is Russ is going to take. You've seen it, 3-4 sacks a game. He's going to put himself in harm's way with perceived pressure, and you've got to be able to overcome those things. They were able to do that in Seattle. They weren't able to overcome those things here under Sean Payton and under this offense, and we'll see if it happens in Pittsburgh.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, we appreciate you guys, appreciate you listening, and I apologize. I do love Jesus, but I do cuss every now and again, so I apologize for that. But I get a little passionate, and maybe I'll try to work on that. All right, for Mike, I'm Mark. Lates for you guys. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth, we thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. If you want to see more of our videos, you can also be sure to check out our playlist. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of that.
Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.